Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Tuesday's edition, and we are back here in sunny Southern California. Happy to have you with us today. I do want to welcome my guest from the middle of the country, Chicago, Tom Amenta. Happy to have you back with me today.
Hey, always good to be on the show, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, listen, I came back from a 2-week trip, and I do want to announce to our audience that our company, Conservative Broadcast Media and Journalism, was able to acquire the assets of American Media Periscope, and we are now partners with AMP News Inc. And so feel free to check that out. It's a good thing for the conservative cause, and more to follow. Tom, let's get to the news of the day, and there's a couple really big stories happening. Let's start first with the economic news.
Okay.
10-year notes today rose above 4.75. They're actually, last time I looked, trading at 4.78. 2-year note trading at above 5.1, trading around 5.112. Tom, these rising interest rates are going to wreak some havoc with certain parts of the economy. Again, we went through the scare earlier in this year where banks that held low interest rate mortgages having to write them down mark to market. Some banks, and the argument is, well, we don't have to mark it down, we're going to hold it to maturity. Okay, fine. That's becoming a problem. What are you hearing out there in the Midwest relative to these rising interest rates?
It's one of those things. Like, interest rates people always seem to care about them when it's their mortgage rate, their car payment, or their high yield account, right? Savings account. When I got into the market for my home loan earlier this year, I got 6.25, and I was like complaining about it. Now you can't get anything under 7 1/10. Right. It's just, so that's super concerning. I heard a friend of mine who has, I don't remember exactly what their credit score was, but I know it's over 700. So not quite, enough to get the optimal rate potentially, but certainly not down in the doghouse, so to speak. They were getting quoted on a car loan rate at 9.25.
Okay. Yeah. So it's starting to affect everyday Americans.
It's starting to affect everyday Americans. And I mean, if you're sitting on a great cash position, like, who's going to say no to a 5.5 high yield savings account? Like, certainly not me. But the fact that right now, I can't remember what news agency I saw it through. I wish I checked. I want to say CNN. Like, don't quote me on that, but I believe it was. They started talking about that. There's very little free cash in the U.S. now. Most of those savings that happened like in COVID during that massive sort of expenditure from the government is gone. Yeah, is gone. People are now at or worse than they were. I think what's the classic thing? Like, half of America can't survive a $400 emergency or something like that. Right. We're back to that. So when you start looking at these things, you start getting chipped away on inflation. It's one of those things we're not even talking about too yet, but it's like, what are college loans going to do for the people that are in school now? Right? I mean, your loan will get frozen in, but that's such a problem. Those loans just kicked back in as of Monday for 40 million Americans or something like that. And so now that's already an additional expense. If you're going to try, the interest is getting baked into rent as that's coming in, even though some of that is cooled a little bit market wise, you're still going to get higher rates for your rental rates if you're in major cities like Chicago or New York City or something like that. So yeah, this is getting problematic. This is not a good thing.
And then there's a couple other contributing factors too. Record federal budget deficits. Again, the bond market is going to stop this stuff because the bond market doesn't care. It's going to say to the federal government, cut spending or we're going to continue to raise these rates. And there's nothing the government can do about that. I mean, they cannot control it. The bond market's bigger than the government, and that's going to happen. Also, Tom, the Federal Reserve has been actually shrinking its balance sheet. Now, you ask, what does that mean, Mark? Well, the Fed balance sheet used to be $2 trillion. During COVID, it escalated north of $9 trillion. Now it's coming back down, hovering around $8 trillion right now. You may think, well, wow, that's quite a bit. It's still elevated, but it's coming down. How does this happen? Because the Fed's not buying bonds. And as their bonds are paid off, their balance sheet shrinks. So what does that mean? It means higher interest rates for longer, slowdown in the housing market. Right now, Americans are still buying cars. I mean, the big three automakers are still producing, but there's risks out there. Stock market risk comes first and foremost. Because if money has an alternative, where to go? Look, when interest rates were 1% and 2%, no wonder the stock market boomed. But now, as you mentioned, you have a choice. You can get 5, 5.25, 5.5, money markets, CD rates. I mean, with zero limited risk. So I think that's going to be a big factor. The other thing, Tom, geopolitical risk out there. You know, with the war in Ukraine continuing endlessly, gas prices and diesel for our truckers out there really high. I mean, it was sort of like culture shock. When I was in Florida, we were paying $3.79, $3.89 a gallon. Out here, $6.29, $6.49. I mean, it's culture shock. You come back here, and within 2 weeks, the rates gas up $1. But that filters into everything in the economy. And rising gasoline prices as a result of refineries out across the world, rising oil prices, higher U.S. dollar. I mean, some of these emerging market currencies are getting slaughtered. Tom, this is not the ideal picture I think the White House wanted to paint heading into election year.
I mean, no White House would want anything close to a picture like this. And it was weird. So 2 weeks ago, I was out in Deadwood, South Dakota, on vacation, which is one of my low key favorite places in the entire U.S. And gas prices in South Dakota were $3.89. And if you've ever had to go to Deadwood when you're on a flight, you fly into Rapid City and it's an almost hour drive. So it's not like, I'm getting the whole quote unquote big city of South Dakota or anything like that, or the tourist trap that Deadwood sometimes can be, but I'm okay with it. No, it was still $3.89 across, actual highway. And it's huge. You know what I'm saying? You're just driving down 90 for 30 minutes. You don't see anything less than $3.89 in South Dakota of all places, right? I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about gas prices, man. I'm not even gonna, you said 620, it's over 5 in some spots here in Chicago right now. I think the last time I filled up in this area was I think I got a bargain at 437 or something like that. It's just unbelievable.
Well, what's going to happen? I hate saying this, folks, but what this looks like to me is Jimmy Carter-like stagflation. When you have high inflation and a stagnant economy. And I'm reading the tea leaves out there. Boy, I tell you.
I'm not ready to go there with you. I think that, they just released the jobs. There's still 9.6 million free jobs out there, which is higher than expected. There is enough competition still in the job market to offset some of this. And I know that we're, on the cheat sheet, we're going to get to $20 for fast food workers in California, which I'm not talking about for the record. Are some of the things there? Yes. But just like everyone was trying to talk about, are we in a recession? Are we not? When you and I were here, 9 months ago, being the supply chain snarls were unprecedented. The free cash flow and the economy was there were so many other things that in the military, when you're planning a mission, one of the things you always talk about are the second, third, and fourth order effects. Okay, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? Well, what could that be? I still think that we're dealing with a little bit of this right now. Now, some of it was easily predictable. Wait, there's too much free cash in the economy. Inflation went up. Shock me, right? Welcome to basic economics.
Yeah, basic.
But at the same time, this labor market has shown itself to be so unbelievably resilient. I mean, look, I'm in tech. It was a bloodbath at the beginning of the year, just an absolute bloodbath. But most of my friends that got cut have found other employment, many of them still in the tech sector and small and medium-sized businesses or in other places. A couple of them went from, being in tech to just getting snapped up by the Deloittes of the world, the PwCs, the consulting companies just snapped them up for almost equal. So I'm not ready to go there yet. I'd have to see the labor market really crater. But if the labor market does crater, I'll have to be you were right because I was wrong on this one. I think that ultimately the biggest bulwark against stagflation is a robust labor market. And we have that in spades. It's the thing that's still frustrating Jerome Powell and why he keeps raising rates is because he's trying to, his basically, it seems to me at least, that his critical factor is, am I cooling the job market off? And it just hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't. And you made a good counterpoint there. And look, I'm not saying we're in it right now, but I'm reading these tea leaves. And if interest rates continue to go north, which I think they will, it's not going to shock me to see the 10-year note go above 5%. Not at all. You're going to have
Yeah,
some
I'm not
slowdown.
going to say that you're. Yeah, I'm not going to say that you aren't looking at things and seeing a trend that could be worrisome. I want to be completely clear about that. But I just look at it on the other side and say, what is the one thing that always saves an economy from stagflation is the one thing that is still unbelievably hot in this country. So I'm just not ready to push that panic button yet.
Well, I'm going to go down two paths with you here. One,
All right, here we go.
the auto strike, where
Right.
they wanted a 40% pay increase
Mm-hmm.
and work hours reduced to 32 hours a week. Now, that's not going to happen. That would bankrupt the auto
Right.
industry.
Right.
Here in the great state of California, it's now law, minimum wage for fast food workers, $20 an hour. And a couple people asked me, said, Mark, what's the effect of this going to be? The answer was real simple. There's going to be less fast food workers. They're like, how? How? If they're paid more, how they're going to be less? Real simple.
Automation.
Real simple. I mean, it costs you less in technology than it does to hire the human being to do the job.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't need to guess that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
there will be a group of fast food workers that will keep their jobs earning $20 an hour.
Yes.
You got to have some people. The marginal ones, the folks at the margin, will not. And that's just
Correct.
that. I mean, speaking to a tech guy like you, am I
Yep.
off base on that, or am I
No,
reading
there's
it
been-
crystal clear?
There's been ordering kiosks at McDonald's and places like that internationally for almost a decade at this point. I was traveling all around the world, and one of the places I was in Israel, and I would go into McDonald's in different countries just to see, like, it was an interesting sort of culturalism, like the meeting of that country's culture and America was always something that fascinated me. So I didn't eat there a lot. Usually I just ordered coffee, but it was always interesting. You went into Israel, and the only way you ordered was through a kiosk. There were like two cooks in the back cooking the food, and there was like two people handling, like, giving out the orders. I think one of the two people doing the orders was considered the manager. Like, the people that are actually going to get crushed on this is all that middle management or shift management workers that, this is one of those things. As much as people beat up on fast food, like, there was a viable career in that, I would say, up until probably, about 10 years ago, where if you really worked at it, and even if you didn't have the education, you could get yourself to a shift manager, to an assistant manager, to a manager. Like, you ended up being,
Right.
middle class, slightly above, in those systems. So, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, like, no, that's exactly what it's going to be. Is the technology is going to come over. Now, I will fight you a little bit on the auto workers. The 40% and the 32 hours, I completely agree, is ludicrous. What I also have to look at the automakers and go, y'all got greedy, is in 2008 when they almost had no industry and everybody in that industry almost went out of work or was gobbled up by the federal government until they decided what something was going to look like. The UAW gave a ton. Okay. Yeah. They're like, we like our jobs. We're going to keep them. All right. And then after it got reorganized, and the profits and everything absolutely boomed, the auto workers caught it and just lightning in a bottle, and the average worker didn't see a lot of that. I have a very mixed opinion on unions. On one hand, I appreciate it when my dad was in one and we were barely making ends meet, so he knew he had a minimum when he was before he moved into sales and like really crushed the American dream. On another hand, I think that they're generally greedy and they overextend. Like, there's two things can be true at once. They can be good to a point, and they can be bad after you cross that Rubicon. So I'm not necessarily mad at the auto workers for wanting something coming due, especially because, in fairness to them, they see the automation, the technology coming that's going to be with electrical vehicles. So you mean to tell me this is probably your last chance for your membership to really get in good and really get a certain protection, and they decided to play hardline? Like, I get it. And the other side, and I'm sorry for the big three, but like, please spare me your sob story about your profits when we all know that you guys caught absolute lightning in the bottle and had an overinflated stock price, net value, profitability, because you guys caught the compromise in order to save everybody in 08. Like,
and I'll tell you another
that's
thing.
all a factor.
I'll tell you another thing that looks bad. There's no way to sugarcoat it, but when the CEO of GM, who's making $30 million a year, that's just a bad look. I mean, when you're negotiating, it sucks, okay?
Yep.
And don't try to sugarcoat it. We're not doing that because we're capitalists here, but it's bad.
Yep.
And
well, and it's bad in the light of what I said, where it's like, You only have that. You're only doing that because you had an look, you and I are both capitalists, but we're also businessmen. We know that their profit margin has been overinflated with the biggest cost deficit is labor because of what happened in '08. Now, look, I'm not saying if you're the company, get what you can when you can get it, but please don't turn. And again, I want to be very clear with the audience. 40% and 32-hour work weeks are ridiculous and they're ludicrous, and I'm not here for it. Okay, but when you look at what a 22.5% pay increase would be relative to what the current margins are and everything, that's actually not unreasonable.
No, I didn't say it was.
Insane.
I'm not editorializing one way.
Oh, no, I know you're not, but I'm just saying, like, some people are like, I can't believe these numbers. And even if I throw 22.5 out there, like, well, that's still a huge number. It's like, look at the entire economics of what that industry is and how much it's over-rotated. And I mean, I hate the word fair often, but kind of fairly favored the corporations on this. But, they never gave anything back when the UAW gave something up, and now the UAW wants their piece of the pie. And like, on some levels, it's not even a union thing to me. That's like if I loan you $20, and then you stiff me on it, I'm gonna want the 20 back at some point. Like,
well, there's negotiations going on, but it seems to me like in all these labor negotiations around the country, the workers are getting the wins and wages are going up a lot. Anyhow, let's move on. Okay. The other big story of the day is Kevin McCarthy's on the verge of losing his speakership.
He's cooked.
Yeah. And
he's cooked.
I got to tell you something. You can say what you want about the Democrats when they were in Congress, but when they ran it, Pelosi ruled with an iron fist. I mean, They stood behind her rank and file. It was odd to have any dissent. That's not the way it is on our side. And this thing that Gaetz has initiated, we're conservative Republican. I am, but this is not a good look, Tom. I mean, I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
Look,
and I think it's a problem.
As the centrist, okay, on this, and everyone who's seen me on the show now for a couple of years knows how centrist I am. Matt Gaetz is the devil to me, the absolute unmitigated Satan, right? Like, because I can't figure out why he's cutting the nose despite the face. And the fact that this small group, so if McCarthy loses 6, he's done. As of right now, as of the recording of this show, Matt Gaetz, Victoria Spartz, Eli Crane, Nancy Mace, Bob Good, and Matt Rosendale have already said they're voting to get rid of him. Okay? He's done. Like, it's over if they follow through on that commitment. That still doesn't pick up Andy Briggs, Paul Gossert, Anna Polina Luna, Ken Buck, and Andy Ogles, which are all the farthest to the far right for the Freedom Caucus. Like, they haven't even chimed in yet, although I'm sure Biggs is 100% going over there giving his voting record. Like, look, if all of you watching as conservatives want to understand why people like me are going insane and don't want to hear about almost any of your candidates and why the left center is going to throw in with Biden, it's stuff like this. Yeah. Believe me, there are so many people who want nothing to do with Trump or DeSantis if he somehow did it and Biden. But why are they going to throw in on that side? It's because of stupidity like this. The Senate, Mark, the Senate got a bipartisan deal done that both sides were like, we don't love this, but we at least accept this is the cost of doing business to do the most basic function of our job, and that's keeping the government running. And anywhere from 6 to 14 morons, right, who don't understand the basic 101 of their job are going to crater it for what? Because a dude literally said, no, we can't do this. We have to do our jobs. And if I have to check a box and hold my nose and work with people I don't like, then so be it. Like, that's what we're talking about here. It's like one dude is willing to do his job, and you've got these other people like, no, I don't like not getting 100% of what I want, so we're not going to do our job. Like,
well, let's throw out who are the candidates to replace McCarthy, assuming that happens.
So the one name that I know I read a couple of times on all 3 of the major networks, because, I like MSNBC to see what the crazies are doing. And then I love Fox News to see what that super version of the crazies are doing. And then I listen to CNN to see if they both say the same thing, then maybe it's the truth. Even if CNN is more towards the left. Tom Cole from Oklahoma is a name that's been floated about. Matt Gaetz has personally said it, but here's the thing, okay? I know someone really well that used to be on Tom Cole's staff. He's not there anymore, but was with him for many, many years and many, many terms. Honestly, you could make a point. You could make a contention that Tom Cole is closer to the center than Kevin McCarthy is, just in pure politics. That's the thing, is like, that's the one name I kept hearing consistently. And that's why I don't understand the move. Like, it's not even that they think that they're going to get someone that's farther to the right, like somehow get a Hail Mary for a Jim Jordan or something like that, farther to the right to get in for them. They're just cutting the nose to spite the face. That's the only way I can see this, is they just don't like McCarthy and they want someone different. I would be shocked to see if Tom Cole did get it and he's suddenly more pliable than McCarthy. Like, look, maybe something's changed the past couple of years. That's entirely fair because, again, I don't get to like ask anymore. But like, I would genuinely be shocked if he did get it and suddenly he's more pliable. It's just he's not Kevin McCarthy. And Matt Gaetz, somewhere along the way, decided that he didn't like McCarthy. And now he's going after him for basically just doing the basic tenet of the job, which is to keep the government open.
What about the rumors out there that they're going to try to oust Gaetz?
Can we please? Is that an option? Can we make that happen? Can we bring up those like I'm sorry, but like, look, you can't be like, this is the classic thing where they talk about the firefighter also being the arsonist. Like, you're the policymaker and you're just destroying any other potential avenue to policy except for the one that you 100% agree with. Look, again, I've got a degree in political science, and I always bring this up. And it drives me nuts that America has lost this. Like, America just doesn't seem to understand this basic tenet of the way our government is supposed to work anymore. And that is, when James Madison, who framed the Constitution, who framed the tricameral, the bicameral House and Senate, and the checks and balances of the three segments of government, he designed it to be the least efficient system of government the world had ever seen. The least efficient on purpose, because his theory was, and this is held up until the past 20 years, is like, well, the more efficient we make it, the more one voice lives in the room, and the less likely we are to compromise at scale. So rather than try and do something like that, let's force compromise at every single possible opportunity to ensure that the broadest swath of the American people are represented and served. Okay, that is the job. Okay, yes, represent your district, represent your state, represent the United States through the president in the way that you see to the best of your abilities. But always never forget that our government is literally created with the idea that at some point you need to compromise to get this done, because you are not the only voice in the room. You don't represent all of Americans if you're any leader in the United States. Wow. So let's get away from it. And instead, no, Matt Gaetz does not represent me at all at this point. There are zero things that I have in common with that man. There are zero policy points that I agree with at this point with this guy. So please stop trying to crater the government of my country.
Yeah,
right?
Well,
AOC gets that smoke too when she decides to pipe up. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's not the only one in government that has that, but he's that voice in the room right now. It's like, no, man, you don't represent America. You don't even represent anything close to America. Let's go.
Well,
knock it off.
Let's shift over from House Speaker politics to national politics. New polling came out. This is for New Hampshire now, first primary, not a caucus. Trump is still leading, 49%. Nikki Haley has surged to 19%, DeSantis 15%. So for the non-Trumpers who want to support somebody, that's good news for Nikki Haley. The bad news behind that poll, 84% of Trump voters will not switch.
Right.
So the media, I guess, Tom, can hype it. Oh, Nikki Haley, she's on the move. She's doing great. If I'm looking at a poll that says 49% Trump and 84% of them are going to support him come hell or high water.
Right.
He could dip down to, 41, 42, and still have a comfortable win in New Hampshire. I don't know. I mean, 39% of primary voters say they would consider changing, but not Trump voters.
So here's where, at any other time, I would say, "Yay, Nikki, you moved." Woo. This election isn't that. One, as a centrist, I like Nikki Haley. Honestly, if you tell me I got to pick between Nikki Haley, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, I'll vote for Nikki Haley. right? Like, I have no idea what I'm going to do in the general if it turns into Trump and Biden. I really don't. Like, it'll probably be a third party protest vote just because I'm in Illinois and my vote doesn't matter. That's the only way.
Speaking of third party, Kennedy says he's going to switch to an independent.
He's not going to do anything. If anything, Kennedy gives the election to Trump, because if he really can scrape off 15% of the Democratic vote the way that he was polling for a while, then he will give the election to Donald Trump if he gets elected. But, and going back to Nikki Haley, if Haley's campaign can keep generating momentum, because she's the only person that's really rising right now. She's the only person that is getting momentum, that is starting to trend. I was reading something in Politico where a lot of the billion-dollar donors are starting to look at her and starting to give her a chance. If she can keep doing this and Trump falls on his face legally, right? Or one of these 14th Amendment challenges, says he can't be on the ballot, which, that's another time for another day.
Yeah.
There's a position there where she becomes, the other. She becomes the anti-Trump. She becomes this relatively reasonable, definitively conservative. Like, look at her politics. Like, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but if you can't see that Nikki Haley is a conservative, you've gone so far over to the right that you really forgot what the party was, okay? I don't agree with everything with her, but I look at her and go, okay, these are basic, normal conservative principles, normal conservative values. And the ones that I don't necessarily like, I can at least get down with the ones that I do and understand that, much like Liz Cheney, who somehow became the princess of darkness, never mind that she's royalty from traditional conservatives up until Trump, right? Like, Nikki's a little slightly to the right, but like, there's nothing wrong with her politics if you're looking at traditional.
She governed
right.
South Carolina as a
right.
center right governor. That's what.
And she's solid. Like, so
but
in
here
this
again,
election, when I'm interested,
she can be solid all she wants.
Yeah, but solid might be the thing. If her campaign is banking on Trump ultimately getting arrested, which is very possible, and just to constantly keep building and building and building, and when there's suddenly this massive vacuum space and everyone's turning and saying, well, oh my gosh, what are we going to do if that's the play? And I'm kind of starting to wonder, based on the way they're running that campaign, if it isn't. A, hats off to them for having the courage to do it, and B, she's the nom at that point.
Bear in mind, when you and I have said this, Tom, for the past year, don't count anyone out until the voting starts. Allow the people in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Super Tuesday to vote. So things they could change. I mentioned Kennedy going independent. Who knows whether he takes more from Biden or more from Trump. He has a more favorable opinion among Republicans and Democrats. But anyhow, we'll get to that on a later show. No. I want to talk, we got a couple minutes left. Biden's approval rating. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit, folks. A poll who I respect a lot, Rasmussen. He's got Biden out there today, 49% approval to 48%. Mm-hmm. The Real Clear Politics average of NBC, CBS, CBS, of all of them, Biden's at 41%, his disapproval's 54%. And Tom, behind the scenes, Democrats see these numbers, they're whispering, they support him in public, but man, that support is like ice thin on a warm day.
Well, so Tara Palmieri at Puck has a brand new podcast called Somebody's Gotta Win, where basically she's just trashing this election cycle because we have two sucky candidates and no one in the United States is happy. And it was interesting. She had a Dem strategist on, and the entire thing today, as we're recording, was, well, why isn't anyone primarying Biden? And it basically just boils down to the fear of the devil you don't know compared to the devil that you do. Like, that was the uptake. Although I encourage everyone to listen to it after you're done with the show. It was pretty insightful. She does a really good job on that pod, just try to present as many facets of all of this as she can. And that really vibes with me. And I really thought that was really well said. Like, that's the problem with Biden on the Dem side, is this is the devil they know. And also they made the point in this pod is that if you're a sitting president, whether it's the DNC or the RNC, that's essentially your political arm of your campaign. You own it. So you mean to tell me that someone's going to try and step out, whether you're a J.B. Pritzker or Gavin Newsom or whatever, without that machine and that apparatus? No one's going to risk that. Back to the polling, though, one of the things I think is really important, and I think this is getting missed sometimes, and why I don't like Real Clear anymore, although I agree with you, Rasmussen is one that I do like, is it used to be you pick up the phone, you dial, you get 5,000 people, they'd give you your opinion, and that would be the poll. No one picks up their phone anymore. Everyone texts. Like, my partner, she called me the other day and she literally made the joke. She goes, so can I just I can just call unsolicitedly now if I want to. And I'm chuckling. If we're both in our early 40s, it's like, yeah, babe, of course you can call me, right? But the fact that she can make the joke just says just how much of a trend and a transfer in how we do things in America. And the problem is that polling hasn't caught up. Polling hasn't really found a good way to get real information from real people. And honestly, part of the problem with some of the polling is that it skews right. It skews older and conservative just because they're the people that are still willing to pick the phone up. And just the services and everything haven't solved for that. So it's like there are individual ones, and you've already mentioned one that I really like, but it's like when I see them have something that's quote unquote outlier anymore, I don't really believe that. I start looking at them as a trend line.
When I hear Nate Silver's 538.com sounding the warning siren about Biden, he's to the Democrats what Rasmussen is to the Republicans. So, I mean,
and again, but to you, that's another one that I look at, and it is conflicting information right now. I don't disagree. I just also think that I hate Real Clear because there's also some of these people trying to get into that fight, trying to get into that market, and they're not good. They don't have sound methodology. Honestly, there's the rumors that I've heard. I do not know if this is true, but going back to my friends in Washington, the rumor is that some of the super PACs on both sides of the aisle, all right, because it's sort of a free for all of polling that they're trying to figure out how to do their own methodology that I won't say skews it to their side, but creates the most favorable picture they possibly can to have that be part of the conversation. And this is both sides of the aisle, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't the dirty Dems or the awful Republicans. Okay, this is a really, frankly, solid strategy if you want to give your person a boost, if you can get away with it. So that's just more noise. That's harder to separate the signal. So I use, honestly, you quoted the two that I look at the most. I also like Politico's methodology. They seem to try and play it pretty straight. And then as you get into the election, there's a few more I'll trust. But no, right now, it's the wild, wild west.
We got about a minute left. Listen, I want to report two pieces here. Crime in these blue cities just out of control. Representative Cuellar of Texas, his car carjacked right in D.C. And then a prominent newscaster in Philadelphia murdered. Oh, just terrible things. I don't know what to do about it, but it's bad and it's getting worse. Now, I want to close with this, Tom. And thank God I left this for the last story because I really don't want to talk about it that much. But the Trump fraud case continues, and Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty. The media tries to lead with those stories. Thank God you and I saved it for the very end. 30 seconds, and then we're done on that one.
Well, because this is easy. One, Hunter Biden has every right to plead not guilty.
Sure he does.
Donald Trump's pleaded not guilty 5 times, okay? So I don't want to hear it from anybody on that. It's a nothing burger. Oh, shock. He did what everyone else does if you're rich and powerful. And as far as Trump goes, this is an own goal. This is Trump's own failing and own screw up, and I'm so sick of this. He had the right to a jury trial. And guess what he did? He didn't take it for the civil thing. So you're going to tell me you could have had a jury. You didn't take it. The judge made a decision, which is completely now well within his rights. But just because you don't like it, you want to hang it? No, the judge said exactly what it is. Dude, this is why the appeals process works. This is on Trump, period. He had an option for one thing. He chose not to take it. And now these are the consequences of those actions. Whatever happens here, I don't care, my man. Just start preparing your appeal because that's where you're going to have to go. It's done.
Tom Amenta, thank you for joining me today. As always, opinions from the center. And, we're going to keep the fight going, my friend. So thanks for joining me today.
Always, brother. It's good to see you.
Okay, folks, that's it for today. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll cut through the propaganda, and it's great being back live with you. Have a great day and a good evening. See you on Thursday.